is recognized. Sorry, you should have been.
It's okay. Thank you, Chairman. I actually, since we're clarifying facts, I just wanted to add some emails to the record showing that CEQ did receive sufficient notice to testify at today's hearing, if that's okay with you. Thank you very much. I wanted to read you guys some facts, and I had actually heard what Miss Diana Roth had stated earlier. You know, when I sit up here and I hear legislators on both sides sometimes talking about how we need to fully go green without taking into account the impacts that it has, especially on those that are not as fortunate in this country, I look at that as rather tone deaf. Some of these stats that I was able to look up during this hearing, you know, in 2021, the average salary of Black Americans is $46,400 a year. In 2020, for Hispanics, it was about $55,000, and the poverty rate for Indigenous Americans is about a quarter. So when I see that the average cost for an electric vehicle is $66,000, and then I hear that we need to be pushing for more green initiatives, I think that that is done by people who have maybe never even experienced the struggle. I just got back recently from Indonesia on a congressional delegation where we met with the president, where we met with their parliament, and where we heard that American companies were going there to mine things like cobalt and lithium, things that we use here in the States to produce our own electric vehicles, because we know that this administration, through the Inflation Reduction Act and their war on fossil fuels, has been pushing this. But when we asked the Indonesians what they were doing for their own people, they said, well, we use fossil fuels. When we were in South Korea, even though they're moving towards nuclear energy, they're still also using fossil fuels. Yes, they've embraced going green. However, they're not stupid enough to completely cut off their arm in the process and hurt their own people in order to do so. And of course, then you have China, who doesn't really care about the environment and is busy destroying it. So when I hear about these climate disasters, I take those things into account. My question is for you, Ms. Roth. How has the Biden administration enabled our adversaries through these green initiatives like China and Russia?
China makes most of the components of electric vehicles. They make the batteries, they make the components, they make about 70 or 80% of wind turbines and solar panels. So the big question we have before us is this. Is displacing American energy-intensive manufacturing and sending it to China, does that help the environment at all? Does that help the global climate? Does it help climate change? And I would argue that the answer is no, because what we are doing is giving up American jobs in energy-intensive manufacturing sectors, giving up auto jobs, and these individuals are hurt. And the Chinese are gaining. The Chinese subsidize labor. They have forced labor from Xinjiang. They subsidize energy. They have these coal-fired power plants that we're not allowed to have here. They subsidize capital with interest, very low interest loans to favored companies. And they are gaining, and we are losing, and it's not helping the environment. That's the fundamental question before us. Is this harm we are doing to America helping reduce emissions? I would answer that the answer is no.
Do you believe that politicians that lecture the American people on climate justice should adhere to their own, I believe, their own ideologies? For example, should they ride bicycles to Washington, D.C.? Do you think they should stop eating steak? Because we've heard that, you know, cows contribute to, and their flatulence contribute to climate change and global warming. I mean, don't you think that those people should embrace their own ideologies?
Food security is very important, and fossil fuels are needed for fertilizers, and we need to keep the price of food low. Again, it's low-income individuals that are hurt the most because food is a high proportion of their income. And it is a little strange to see people lecturing about the evils of carbon emissions on planes and then flying their own jets to Davos to take part in conferences.
Oh, that's my favorite. You watch them going in on their G6, and you know, you can see that they clearly have no clue on how their legislation and their crazy ideologies are impacting the rest of the world. But thank you for your time, Chairman. I yield back.